Okay, I think we can start. Thank you all for joining. A lot of you still coming in. Let's start. We'll definitely have a recording as well. We have a really special webinar planned for today, in which we'll talk about the PowerPlus component for the PowerApps environment, and or in short, how we turn PowerApps spatial properly. And today we have a special guest who will be doing the presentation. So I welcome John from Spatial Partners. Hi, John.
Hello.
How are you doing
Thank you for
today?
that warm welcome.
How's the situation in Melbourne, Australia?
Well, it's now got quite dark. It's been a little chilly today, but it hasn't been raining, and there has been a bit of sun, so it's one of those nice winter weathers.
Yeah, I always forget that you're actually opposite to us. We're welcoming spring here, so that's good. Okay, so for today, as I've mentioned, you'll be hosting the webinar. I think you've shared your screen. We're all set. Just to make a short introduction, John, we've been working with you for a long time now. It's been a really, really good collaboration, and we had plenty of opportunities and clients that we've been working on together. But with this integration, I believe we brought our partnership to a higher level, and I'm extremely excited to see how this will be, accepted by all our community, but also by Microsoft community as well. So, yeah, John, you can take it away. And of course, for the participants, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those in the questions form. We will be answering those in the final stage of this webinar. So, John, take it away.
All right, so to provide full context for everybody that's attending, so this integration, GIS Cloud PowerPlus, as we've named it, is in the progress of transitioning from something that we've been developing and working on for a couple of years, actually. And as Microsoft's platform has matured to allow external technologies, we've been able to really bring GIS to Microsoft's platform. And I think it really adds a lot of power to what you can do with it. And mainly because GIS Cloud is such a fantastic product. The process that we're going through, we're starting this year to move towards bringing it into market, but we really wanted to sort of start talking to the community of GIS Cloud, particularly because this really unlocks a lot of things if you're very much wedded to the sort of Microsoft platform, or if you've ever found that there's a feature that you really needed. And so I'll progress. So, hey, there's my beautiful face. So I am the Director and Senior Solution Architect for Spatial Partners in Melbourne, Australia. I have somewhat of a global view, came over from New Zealand. So, and I've been to many countries all over the place. And so therefore I've sort of very much a multidisciplinary background, as was probably seen by the vast number of degrees under my name. However, today I'm going to quickly take you through the Power Platform, just in case any of you are not entirely familiar with what might already be in your backyard in terms of the Power Platform. Then also talk a bit about where geospatial has been in terms of a feature for PowerApps, and basically highlighting why GIS Cloud is worthwhile considering and pursuing. And then I'll also talk about what really makes GIS Cloud not just worthwhile considering, but really shine. And then talk a little bit about PowerPlus as a solution and how you can use that to produce a solution for either a client or for your business. And so moving in, so the Microsoft Power Platform, it's a low-code platform. And personally, while I haven't had confirmation of this, it is my belief that some of the limitations of the Dynamics 365 platform has pushed Microsoft towards trying to offer something that is a bit of a unique beast within the market. And that is really bringing together function as a service, apps as a service, data hosting as a service, all sort of to and actually analytics as a service with dashboards. And that's really to try and bring together, fill gaps in a business where the standard off-the-shelf tools don't quite meet what you need. And I believe this has really come from the evolution of the ERP space, where oftentimes the ERP products often require quite a lot of bespoke development. And if you're really after something that's a very direct solution rather than something that's going to serve for a vast organization that can support a large team of developers, this kind of fills that gap between no ERP and SAP. Now, what's really valuable about it is that you've got the Powerapps, which gives you mobile app and web app. So, and you've got Power Automate, which allows you to do both of these are in a low code situation, which allows you to slightly more complicated than say complex Excel cells formulas, but effectively gives you that ability to encode business logic without having to be a full developer. And what we have really tried to do is bring the power of GIS Cloud Maps into that kind of environment. So if you're needing something that gives that little bit of extra business logic, then you can still have the power of GIS Cloud and capture that extra business logic. And there's also the potential to be able to connect to other third-party services without having to have heavy-duty infrastructure. And this all sits in an Office 365 tenancy. And indeed, all people with an Office 365 tenancy have some degree of access to these tools. Now, because these are external products, connecting out to an external service like GIS Cloud, it does mean that Microsoft requires a premium license for this, but it's not excessively expensive and definitely gives you a lot of power. So in terms of bringing geospatial into Powerapps, there's been a bit of an incomplete evolution so far. And really back in 2017, roughly about then is when what people were doing is they were leveraging standard services like Bing Maps or Google Maps to just render static tiles and using the URL encoded parameters, being able to drop a pin on a map. And that was it. It was just literally an image that you were just downloading on demand. And it's really not overly satisfying working with it if you're doing anything that is actually genuinely GIS based. Now, the thing that they tried to follow this with is using the Powerapps component framework. There was actually a demo of a map component that could be offered. However, that demo of the map component really was still basically static and might be able to offer you a little bit of, address lookups, routing, but not really much that you could do more. And then more recently, Powerapps has included the option of being able to enable a geospatial features add-on. And that does give you a map that you can browse around. However, the data sources are typically coming from an Excel sheet and are limited to points only. With lat long, you have very limited styling options. So while it's a step in the right direction, it still really does not satisfy if you need to do a serious GIS kind of map. And so from this, I shall tell you why GIS Cloud is the ideal thing to bring into your platform. So from if you are building an app in Powerapps, bringing in GIS Cloud means that you're getting, first of all, a global leader in terms of the map rendering engine speed. Now, this is really important because particularly if you're building a mobile app using Powerapps, Powerapps is not necessarily built to be optimized, and so might be a little bit heavyweight compared to other native built apps. And so having something that is very efficient in running the map rendering engine means that's going to be very critical if you have a large number of features. And for example, GIS Cloud very happily handles, even on like pretty standard iOS, sort of iPad type devices in Powerapps, 70, 100,000 features on your map and browsing around smoothly with no problem. So it really doesn't disrupt what PowerApps itself can do. And it kind of fits into the overall performance framework that PowerApps needs, which you might not find with other map options. GIS Cloud also, from my experience, offers some of the broader options in terms of map styling. So that means that you're not going to be particularly limited in terms of doing the visual communication of your GIS data. And it's in no way require, basically the way this component is built, which you'll be able to see later, really allows you to style the map exactly as you would in GIS Cloud, because you are actually doing it there. And then you're just being able to display it in your app and then interact with it there. And so that means you really have no limitations there. There's also some fairly powerful inbuilt form building that GIS Cloud offers, and I'm sure everybody's quite familiar with how good GIS Cloud's forms are. And we have built a component for Quick Start to basically allow, if you don't need any custom form logic other than what GIS Cloud has, then you can drop a GIS Cloud form for a layer straight in, and works as you might expect from similar to the MDC. You've got a fully SaaS product, which means that alongside the Power Platform, it means that you are actually, everything is still SaaS. There's no infrastructure that you need to be responsible for or anything added on. This is literally just a add in the custom solution into your your Microsoft environment and have a GIS Cloud account, and you're good to go. Nothing extra that you have to manage. It's backed by PostGIS, which if you're going out onto the market and looking for something that is a geospatially enabled database, that is going to be one of your, pretty much your best option. And the main reason why we picked to go with GIS Cloud going into PowerApps is that the powerful and flexible API means that you, again, are not really limited in what you can do. It means that you can actually really push it to, as you grow with your skill and working with it, you can really, really push this to its limits. And that's what you want if you're going to go down a slightly more bespoke direction. So you might be wondering how this all starts to fit together. So as a Microsoft solution, there's a few elements that are part of it. Now, I will note, you'll see a little sticker in the corner there, beta version. This is because it is still in active development, but we felt like it is, now that we've got 3 different customers that we have delivered solutions that they are using as part of, to solve business problems, we felt like we had progressed far enough that we really wanted to start engaging with the broader community. And so it's not quite just a, one click, give us your credit card and you're done. It is something that at this stage probably wants a little bit of engagement to be able to meet your needs. However, it is designed for you to be able to really develop yourself and your own skills, much like how GIS Cloud enables you to really develop your own skills in the GIS space. And so the elements that are really key here is you've got the GCMap component, which allows you to display a map and interact with it within PowerApps. You've got the GCForm, which allows you to basically render a form very, very close to what you would see on the MDC app. And you've got GCAuth. Now, GCAuth is a little bit of an unusual one, but this is taking into account the fact that we're generally at this stage working with API keys, and we are aware that security is going to be a concern at some stage. So we've built this little mini component to allow you to encrypt your API keys so that they are encrypted at rest, which means unless the person is actually able to edit the application, if they're just a user of the application, they will never be able to have access to the actual true GIS Cloud key, meaning that it's kept somewhat secure, meaning that even if you're having to store it in, say, a SharePoint list that's accessible by everybody, even if they can see it, they can't decrypt it. So then the last element is the GC API connector. Now, this is what allows you to actually talk to the REST API that is what GIS Cloud in all their products, both the desktop map editor and also the MDC app, users to be able to modify data, to query data, push pull. Basically all the functionality is sitting there, and we have gone through and made sure to expose as much as made sense so that you can basically create applications in the form that you would like to without actually having to learn code. And so this, then you'll see that there's a few things on here all pointing to each other, and you might be sort of wondering, well, how does that actually end up fitting together into solving a problem that I have? And so, whoa, lots of lines. So the blue lines here, blue circles, are really representing how you might go about building a new application. And so you might just be looking to display GIS information alongside other information in your Office 365 environment. And so that's your first small blue circle. And that's really just bringing in the map form and auth with the custom application. But you might want to take that a bit further and maybe actually merge it with some data that you might be managing from SharePoint or from Dataverse, which is their hosted database solution. And so that's kind of where, and you might have a bit of automation in terms of based on user actions, triggering something. The green circles actually represent where maybe you're actually not that interested in the application side of things. And actually what you would like to get involved with is just simply automation of things. And so we have definitely seen a demand for some of this, where using Power Automate to basically interact with the REST API allows you to actually automate actions on demand, either on a schedule or triggered by a user. And similarly, you can then leverage that with the common data model to be able to sort of maybe keep a live copy out in GIS Cloud and being updated by MDC, but then you're syncing data back down for archive into the Dataverse and then using that as part of your business analytics. And then last but not least is the black circle, which really is showing that because of the custom connector that's been brought into the Office 365 environment, that means that you're actually able to pull data out of GIS Cloud and actually feed that direct into, say, a Power BI dashboard and use that as part of your analytics. And so a couple of just quick inspirations in terms of what two of our clients have wanted to do with this. One was building a tree inspection app. And in this case, it was really about trying to do nested records and being able to get soft foreign keys. And so this actually allowed us to have a spatially enabled tree data set, which you can see in the top screenshot. And then below that is what you're then able to inspect. If you're actually looking at that tree, you're able to control what is being edited and what options are being able to be passed into that. Now that's pretty close to standard GIS Cloud functionality. But what you can then do is, depending on whether or not you're wanting to add an L1, L2, or L3 inspection, you're able to go through and actually add multiple inspections that act as soft records that are linked, that don't actually have a spatial component, but are stored within GIS Cloud, capturing the form data for each of those L1, L2, and L3 inspections, allowing multiple child records for each of those inspection types. And the L2 inspections actually have a further child record, of which one of the elements that was quite useful for us to be able to bring into Powerapps was actually this little screenshot in the center here, where the three elements, likelihood of failure, likelihood of impacting target, and likelihood and consequences of failure, each of those three values, there's a set of lookup tables that need to go through to be able to determine what the overall risk rating is. And so this allows us to basically have somebody selecting each of those three values, hit calculate, and then that actually then derives that value that then is stored alongside the other three as an overall risk rating. So that allows us to actually calculate the value on the fly as they're submitting. And that can be a fairly complex calculation. Now, the other side So this is where we've built an entire bespoke app within Powerapps, and that is then being used out in the field with a iPad. Now, on the other side of the spectrum is perhaps the drainage workforce management, where what we've been doing is we've been interacting with a exposed API with one of our clients, and using Power Automate, we're able to synchronize that data into Dataverse. And this is a product that we'd previously built, but they were then wanting to get a straightforward inspection app to be able to go out into the field and just quickly capture some updated data for drainage assets. And so what we did is we actually, rather than reinventing the wheel, at this point, the MDC app was perfectly suitable for what we needed. And so we started actually publishing records from Dataverse up into GIS Cloud, then using that to capture the data and then pulling that data back into Dataverse to keep everything up to date. And then there is the options that's still standing open for them to be able to pursue the management of either adding in an extra custom app to be able to manage something if they need it, or to start bringing that into Power BI. And so this is kind of where, rather than replacing some of GIS Cloud's applications, don't reinvent the wheel. It's especially when it's a good wheel already. So talking a lot and fast, I apologize if I'm talking too quickly.
No, it's perfect.
So I thought rather I would heavily risk a live demonstration of how this all works, because I feel like that's what really communicates the value that is here. I'm sure some of you, your imagination's already buzzing, but this is a quick example of an application currently running in the browser. And this is the demo application that we're intending to actually ship with the solution. And so what I can do is I can reload this. This is not fake. And once that brings to life, and I can click on this, and there we go. There is a MDC form. So this form is actually built in GIS Cloud, attached to the layer as you would for MDC. And then we've actually brought it in here for being able to display and work with. And so this allows you to really simply just drop a component in and start working with it without having to work with any of the complexities of actually building the whole app yourself, mainly to get stuff started. Now, in terms of getting started with looking at the functionality of the app, the map, I will demonstrate for you that this is not something that is really getting performance heavy. And indeed, you can see that we're getting down to here. So this is actually a 75,000 point record data set with separate styling. And what we can do is we do have basic controls to be able to control some of the styles. We can turn everything off, turn it back on again. We can turn off the background layer if we want. And so from here, we can then select any of these, and this is actually pulling live. It's possible to turn off this pop-up. It is, we can go through, and this is directly talking to GIS Cloud. So the data is not actually hosted in the Office 365 environment in this particular application. From this, what we can also do, for example, is we could go in. Well, I'll make sure that I'm going to grab a tree that I can find again. And so I'll change this one to 44. And with the danger of actually doing a live demo, I shall try and demonstrate that it will do what I want it to do. Yes. So as that has now refreshed, that submission has now occurred. And so that allows you to sort of modify everything. So we could not the same. Refresh that data. And not the same. So we are actually working with live data here. We're not faking this. Which I think is an important thing to stress, because you'll see just how easy this is to build. And in fact, what I would like to do is I will now get something started in the background for an editing interface. But this is another example of how you might want to modify the standard GIS Cloud workflow. Now, please excuse my not very pretty application appearance. So this is something where what we might want to do, for example, is make sure that a user is required to submit a health and safety report at the beginning of each day. But after that is completed, you want them to be able to just progress straight onto the next stage and actually be able to modify or select things. So I've got here my username, the current time. I will say I am safe today, and I shall submit that, and that will take me through. And now this brings me into same map with a select my tree. But if I was to refresh this app and start again, you'll see that I've already done my OH&S report for today. And so this is actually using the GIS Cloud API to check a particular table if it is if I have already done this, and then it just skips that whole process, and I can just go straight in and start doing my work. So you could actually then set up something that actually nests that further. And so, for example, based on the age description field, this could then bring up a particular form for editing the mature trees. But what we might want to do, for example, is grab maybe one of these trees. This one is a new tree, and therefore it is the other tree form. And then we might come over here and grab one of these. And so this is now, because it's a different one, the juvenile form. So this is something where what you might have, for example, is a workflow where things are going through various stages. And what you want to do is have a drastically different form and be able to have one layer displaying everything, but a drastically different form that can be filled out based on what stage the item is at. And you could also similarly be checking, say, a lookup table for who the user is and what permissions they have, and possibly modify the form on the basis of that. So these are the kinds of things that you can do. And we've built this so that it's actually quite flexible. And so you'll see up here, we've got the layer ID and feature ID. This is what we're using to actually communicate between components within Powerapps. Now, I don't want to talk too deep into the actual code side of things, because that will probably put people to sleep. But I did want to demonstrate one of the more recent features that we added, because we realized this is going to be quite critical. And that was to be able to capture geometry. And at the same time, I have also come through and demonstrated that we've also made it possible for the toolbar, the tool icons, when we're interacting with it, to be able to change the scale of those. So this was because one of our clients was actually putting this onto a Garmin survey device that had a little 7-inch touchscreen. And so really, when you're out in the field and you've got dirty hands, you really want those buttons to be big so you can hit them right. And so we made it so that we were able to scale these to very, very large, because the screen they were working on is very, very small. And so again, another case where it actually helps out. And what we've got here is the ability to be able to collect either polygon, line, or point data. So we can select that we're going to do a polygon type geometry, and then we're going to do it. Ooh. I might just want to refresh this quickly. I think I left that sitting for too long in a developer state. There we go. So now swap over to polygon. And what we're going to do is we're now going to draw a polygon. And you can see here that one of the things that the map actually outputs is the well-known text representation of that geometry, which can then be used to submit the feature, but you could use it for whatever else you wanted to. You'll also note that as I move the map around, we set output bounds as well of the map. And so this allows you to sort of really, we're trying to empower you as a user if you choose to take on this particular solution. So now what I'd like to do is show you in the editing interface just how straightforward and simple this can actually be. So this is that app that I was showing before with the form component and the map component. So the map component is one item. Here it is. We have a whole series of different elements in here. We've got we can pass in a GPS location and be able to navigate to that. We can trigger a clear of the geometry so that we can you can programmatically drive what's happening on the map. And we can also scale the UI. So that's what I was talking about before, where I could say, bring it up to scale of 3. And now all the buttons are nice and giant. And we can bring it down to 1.2. We can, if I get rid of this and then switch that off, now it doesn't do the pop-up. So we've really tried to offer the ability to really customize the map experience, very similar to what you might get in the sort of ability to do like a custom map portal, but this is really more app driven. And then you might be interested in how this all wires together. And so right now, what we have is whatever the feature was that we had selected, we actually have this on outputting from the map a particular parameter. So you end up you can really think of it like wiring things together, where you've got a map, you click on something, it tells you what the feature ID and the layer ID was. So that way you can feed that into an API call or into the form component, and you can do with it what you need. And similarly, once you've got something like data out, you can then use that to feed into like a edit box and be able to populate a form. And so that's really sort of driving how it all fits together. Very, very simple. And then behind the scenes, there's a little GC auth component, which allows you to basically drive a, that's what's allowing you to encrypt or decrypt your API keys to keep them secure. So with all of that, the last thing I'll do is I'll just highlight that because we've got the REST API, this is all the kinds of things you can do with the GIS Cloud REST API right now, and we're constantly adding more. And so this allows me to go through and be able to say, oh, I would like to find out, grab a layer, get a file, get details from a table. So this is with Power Automate, and this is the function as a service. So this allows you to start to automate things in the background if you wish. So I think I should be opening up for some questions now.
Yeah, perfect. Definitely, this is, I've already seen this before, I have to mention, but it's always exciting to see this in action. So yeah, great presentation. Something I want to comment on something. So you've mentioned that some of the things are still in beta, but
yeah,
there are already customers that are utilizing the setup, right?
Yes, I'll emphasize that we currently have 3 customers that are using this as a dedicated deployed solution, and it is working. It is delivering value for their business right now.
Absolutely, and that was the main reason for you actually pushing more into this direction, which is extremely exciting for us as well. We are talking with customers on a daily basis where we talk about what we can do for them in GIS Cloud, but now we can expand all that with potentially Microsoft elements that they maybe already use. But what's more exciting is that we are now enhancing PowerApps with that
Mm,
spatial component, but properly.
mhm,
You mentioned that
mhm.
they're moving to that direction, right? But with GIS Cloud, they've actually, you can jump a couple of years ahead with what we've done or
Ah,
what you've done, right?
I would say with GIS Cloud, you're jumping more than a few years ahead. I would say that with GIS Cloud, you're really jumping to exactly where you would want to be with spatial elements within PowerApps and seeing how long some of the features in PowerApps has taken to be developed and released by Microsoft. I would highly doubt in it they will catch up to what GIS Cloud can offer for a very, very long time.
I completely agree, but it's better to hear it from you than from us, obviously.
Yeah.
Great. So let's see if we have some questions. Okay, we have a couple. Okay, obviously, the first question is always about the price. So let's say that they do have a Microsoft Power App environment. How much will this cost? The extra GC component, how much will it cost?
Please excuse me. Hopefully there wasn't a bang came through the microphone. So the GCMap component, what we are planning to do is this will be billed on a tenancy basis, so not a user basis. This is partially because both Microsoft and GIS Cloud have a user-driven pricing model, and we didn't want to add additional price loading on top of that because we felt like it would not make it desirable as a solution that would deliver value for people. So that being said, we're looking. Do you want me to give exact numbers?
Well, it will depend, of course, on
Mm,
the use case we have, but it will
mm.
definitely be more than cost effective. You know,
Yes. At this point, we are looking to not significantly exceed the cost of not drastically exceed the cost of a single extra map editor license. So that is sort of the favorable price range that we're looking at with this. And again, part of this is because we recognize that the people who will find the best value for this are those that are at the smaller organizational side, and we do not wish to punish those in a smaller organization.
absolutely, absolutely. This is what GIS Cloud is all about. So
Exactly.
make sure that proper mapping is available to all. So definitely. Okay, it's another question that I think is a really good one. So how much time does it take to build an app from start to finish? And I would expand on that. Is this aimed towards more towards developers, or maybe someone who's a non-developer could actually, jump into this and build an app through Power Apps with GIS Cloud components? What do you think?
So the reality is, as you dive into this, you can probably get started with very little knowledge. I would say if you've already got yourself comfortable in GIS Cloud and working with it as a platform, this should not be something that is scary to you. And you should be able to slowly increase, and the more knowledge you will get, the more effective you will be. But you can achieve powerful things in this without having developer knowledge. And in fact, a lot of what Microsoft tries to do with their platform is to abstract this away, and we have followed that path.
Mm-hmm.
And
So,
so
mm-hmm.
yeah, we've tried to make it as easy as possible for you, so you don't have to worry about too much. And we're going to continue improving it as time goes on.
Yeah, this is only the beginning, right?
Mm.
You already have, you didn't even come out of beta. We already have 3 customers, and we could imagine what will happen now
Mhm.
once we fully release it.
And I will note that there is a very close partnership between ourselves and GIS Cloud. So we're not just here as coming out of the blue. We have actually been working very closely with GIS Cloud, and they are supporting this directly. So this is not something that's going to be abandoned.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. This is a way to go. Okay, another question. Can we try this house ourselves, or do we need you to set it up?
So currently, until we've finished kind of going through the beginning of our beta process, you will have to contact us directly, and we will be able to deploy the solution onto your tenancy to try it out and sort of see how you like it. Once this is released to the public marketplace, our intent will be, well, the requirement is that you'll be able to basically trial the solution with, for a few days without any cost and be able to sort of see what could we achieve with it. And so that is definitely part of what we're planning to do with the commercial model.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have a couple more questions coming in. Did you have any date format discrepancies with integration?
So Microsoft does have opinions about dates, and date formats are always a challenge. However, Microsoft's platform does have a few date conversion options, which does mean that you're able to basically adapt to whatever format is going to be required. And what I can say quite confidently is that GIS Cloud's API is quite good at dealing with slight variations in the standard formats. So it means that it's doesn't get upset if Microsoft isn't quite being perfect. And it makes integration easier. Although with all of that being said, sometimes with Microsoft's side of things, does mean that we have to be a little clever with some of the date submissions. And so we have had in one of our solutions, we ended up storing both a true date in the Postgres database for GIS Cloud, as well as a string encoded version of the date for display to the user, so that we could do both, complex date filtering, and we could display the format in the exact way that the user wanted.
Okay, great. I have another question. So can I connect this with Power BI? Do you need a PowerApps integration or PowerApps app to do the integration with Power BI?
So you don't actually need the app to be able to integrate with the Power BI. So the connector is pretty much going to be something that we will be maintaining at marginal cost. And that is the reason, that is because it is fairly, it's the kind of thing that anyone with a medium level of developer knowledge would be able to implement themselves. And so we did not feel it was fair to try and charge people money for that. But if you want to use the map component or the auth component, that definitely does require a license. However, that means that for a very simple Power BI interaction, you could just use the REST API connector and pipe that data straight into a Power Query that then drives Power BI.
That's really interesting, considering that we have a lot of customers actually using both GIS Cloud and Power BI. Obviously, the PowerApps environment will give them more options, but for now, I see a lot of our existing customers getting value simply with that kind of integration and connection. So yeah, that's good. We have a really good comment. I'll just read it out loud. Hi, Jonathan, great presentation. I followed it very closely and I'm very impressed with what you have achieved, especially on the tree inspection app that you showed. Having multiple records against a single spatial point, such as trees, is a game changer and is a really major step forward. I completely agree with that. How easy would it be to replicate something similar for use in the UK? And what timescales do you see these developments being integrated?
So thank you very much for the compliments. I appreciate it. I will highlight because that GIS Cloud themselves are working on relationship tables to be able to provide some of this kind of functionality. And certainly it may very well meet some of the needs once that is fully developed and released. However, there are obviously extras that could be put on top of the sort of standard functionality that GIS Cloud might be offering that you may wish to have, which could be incorporated in, might be a requirement of some of the tree apps and things like this. And so, yeah, in terms of replicating that particular application, in terms of core functionality, I would say you'd be looking at with a medium skilled user, maybe a week or two worth of effort to be able to put together. And you could do that right now with the solution. So if we were to deploy that on your tenancy, you would be able to build that app.
And for that, they would need obviously GIS Cloud subscription plus PowerApps environment, right?
Yes, yes. So it would need the licensing, which includes a license for the PowerApps Premium, which gives you both the premium access for Power Automate and the PowerApps. There is the cheapest option is, I believe, $5 US per user per application per month. However, there are options to be able to get a user a single license for all applications that they would like to interact with. So it depends a little bit on how many applications you want to build. And then, of course, you would still need your standard licenses for GIS Cloud.
Okay, that's a good answer and a great question. Obviously, we'll be in touch with each and every one of you after the webinar as well. We'll definitely want to follow up and see what is your use case and how we can help. We do have we have a lot of questions, but we kind of planned like 35-40 minutes for this, and we've already gone through 50. So I will actually stop here, if you don't mind. We will be in touch with all of you. It is extremely good to see the interest we've generated with this topic. And as John mentioned, we'll definitely push more towards into this direction, and because we definitely see how this can bring value to our community, but also an extremely good value that we can bring to the Microsoft environment. So we're really excited about this and what's coming in the near future as well. Any final thoughts, John?
What I would like to say is, given that there have been a lot of questions, any further questions that are submitted, quite happy to make sure that we actually provide an answer, possibly after we, as part of the distribution of the actual slideshow as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll coordinate regarding that.
Yeah.
But this is definitely not the last webinar on this topic. We'll definitely do a lot more, more of these things. So I want to thank you, John, for the extremely good presentation, exciting stuff. We'll definitely follow up together with all of these potential adopters. Let's call them early adopters, although we have proven, we have battle tested the whole solution, so it's all good. Thank you all for joining. We'll have a recording as well. We'll share it to everyone else. Thank you, John. Have a great rest of the day, and thank you all.
Thank you to everyone for attending.
Bye-bye.